The cats are playing in their paper in the background, so if you hear lots of ruckus, that's what that will be. Hello there, and welcome back to The Closet Historian, and back to my chaotic sewing parlor project. This is going to be part 2. Unfortunately, I think there will be certainly a part 3 and potentially a part 4. It's taking far longer than I had anticipated, like everything has with this whole moving process, seeing as I feel like I'm still in the very beginning stages of unpacking and I've been here for months. But today I'll be showing you a bit more decorative painting, including a Trompe fireplace that I put together in this room in my old mantle, which I also have spruced up a little bit since you saw it last. And then I'll talk you through the furniture I'll be using in this room, sort of the hows and whys of why I have structured it the way that I have. And seeing as apparently it's suddenly playtime in the house and the cats are making a ton of noise, let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, pals, the floor is already super dusty. Just between us cutting some holes in the back of these things and the cats. So for all of you who are like, don't have a black floor, it'll be very dusty. I know, it's fine. We like black, okay? That's just how it is. The goal for today is to get the IKEA cabinets, Havstas I think they are, either side over here. And you can start to see why the mantle doesn't quite blend in. We'll see if that works or not in the end. Thank you, Ollie, for piping in. That's right, like many a crafter before me, I will be using some IKEA to build out my workroom. I went for 2 Havsta units either side of my fireplace, and then 2 Maslow sideboards in the center as my cut table. And believe me, I have seen the real antique store furnishings out there, especially at shops down in Hudson, New York, entire shop counters and display cases pulled right out of old stores in Brooklyn and things like that, but to say that I cannot afford those would be a grand understatement. Even more reasonable antiques in the same sort of price range as these IKEA pieces, I would have had to have the delivery cost added onto that as well to get them from wherever they were to my house, including renting a truck, so renting humans to move them, so it was just out of my budget to go for anything other than IKEA at this time. Though hopefully you agree that updating the knobs here on the Havstas at least gives them a slightly less modern look. And in general, I was still going for the kind of apothecary setup of lots of display cases in the back and a sort of shop counter or atelier tailor's table in the center. And with my more usual funky colored lighting, I think things start to play off each other a lot better, as opposed to the bright white lighting that I've been using to do my stenciling work in here. All right, pals, I have done the blue stripe all the way around the room now, including above my head, over the window, etc. So at least the blue stripe is done, but that's kind of the easy part. Although my hand does hurt now because my hands are like, could you give me a real rest, please? But I have the blue stripe all the way along above the curved windows in here as well. And then of course I painted the window trim yesterday, which why even bother taping when it's going to be such a mess? So I'll touch that up, but probably a few touch-ups on this black as well. This is Onyx from Benjamin Moore. It's not a perfectly dark black. This is in the satin pearl finish, which I really like. Better than the, I think I was using semi-gloss upstairs, but I've switched over to the satin pearl finish and I really like that. It looks much more like ebonized aesthetic movement stuff. So I'm going with that from now on. Now I just have to do all of this frieze work in this narrow zone. And I might do something different over the keystones, so that I can flip and repeat the design like on either side of the keystone, as opposed to have it be like a weird spot here. So I think I want to stop the design there, have something else going above the keystone, and then mirror it on the other side. That way it looks centered above each of these keystones, even though, I mean, I have a thing about symmetry, but apparently not everyone does, because there's plenty of stuff in this house that is not symmetrical, which is very unfortunate to me. And that includes this archway, by the way. This arch is not completely perfectly lined up with this bump out. So whoever in the past was in charge of that owes me an explanation, basically. In a sneak preview of this room, I did have my couch delivered yesterday. So I put some pillows on there. I was originally going to paint this room dark purple, but now I'm thinking that's going to be too dark in here because this room is just so dark. These are, what are these? Eastward facing windows, but there's a house there which blocks that eastern sun, so it's basically pretty dark in here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and paint it arsenic instead in here. So that's the current plan. You can see the couch has been thoroughly inspected by these rambunctious terrible twosers, although I guess they're almost 3 now, so I can't keep calling them terrible twosers. because they are almost 3 years old now, but they're still have a lot of zoomies left in them, as you can see. This is the chandelier that came with the house, but I of course put LED bulbs in it. And this is the silver I was talking about. It's like all the way through the cord is silver inside, so it really is not gonna be perfect for the space. I don't know where I'll put it instead though, because I don't really have any other rooms where a silver and glass chandelier can go. But one day I'd like to have a nice Art Nouveau and brass chandelier in here. I found a couple of really amazing ones recently, but they're super expensive, so I'll just have to keep dreaming about that. So while my mom was here, we finished putting the furniture together and got it in place. Oh, someone is scratching on either side of the mantle, like so. So that is what that looks like now. And I know what you're thinking, Bianca, you covered up all of your hard work with apothecary jars. And I would like to say to that, yes, I did. So there's that. No, definitely no one can see the flaws back there now. But isn't it better to have many apothecary jars in life? I think so. None of the stuff inside, I mean, maybe the tops probably is going to stay this way, but none of the stuff inside or on top of the mantle or any of that is permanent. It's just kind of like stuff I think I want to use in this room that's just chilling there for now. I need to unpack my books and my fabric and everything in here before I decide exactly what else is going to be living in here, because obviously fabric storage is number one. But this little table my mom got for me at an antique store in, what's it called? Ballston Spa, South Saratoga Springs here in New York. It's not like an old table. It's like a, I want to say mid-century to 1970s-ish table. It has some labels inside that are like constructed the same way as a real mahogany table would have been, like whatever. We had to actually re-stabilize this with some L brackets, so not holding up actually, but this is going to be my little sewing desk. So the sewing machine will eventually go here. It's at the end of what will become the cut table, which is currently behind this scaffolding and holding some extra sofa pillows and my coat and a Sophie. Also this rug that you see here, it's luckily olive green. This rug was actually in my parents' dining room and my mom didn't want it anymore, so she like rolled it up and put it in the garage a couple of years ago. And so it was offered to me when I moved and I said, yes, thank you. So this is an actual wool nice rug that my mom gave to me, so that's nice. But we have these two sideboards again from IKEA, just like the other black furniture back here. Two sideboards pushed together to become the center cut table in this room. Like if I stood behind it, it's giving rather old-fashioned store counter kind of a vibe, right? A little bit. So we got our Atelier general store, hopefully hints of that going on here. But I have to put the blue table of doom on top of this, which actually might end up being a brown table of doom, because I think I might try and pull the tone from the fireplace, from the mantle and the table in a little bit more by doing this tabletop in a dark brown tone as well, which I kind of have started a little bit of a project over here on the mantle, which is currently paused, but I'm going to be building a little frame and using some very thin 1/4 inch MDF to fill this in. That way I can faux finish it to look like a cast iron summer screen inside of here. And then I'll paint, what is it called? Not faux bois, trompe do tile all around here with a little bit of shading so that it looks actually like tile, probably with a light source coming in from this side because that's where the windows are. You think this is dusty, but it's actually just damage. You can see there's a lot of bits where the finish is completely chipped off, so it's almost getting down to bare wood across here. I mean, it's currently covered with a doily and some black glass, and these were from Target, but several years ago. I'm not currently shopping at Target, like no one is really. But those were from Halloween at Target a couple of years ago. But you can see the finish is really just chipping right off. So I would use a restore finish, but I don't think it can restore the lack of a finish on here. And so there's some areas over here too, where the finish is just completely coming off. And there's some areas of this where things are chipping off. The top of the columns is doing pretty well, but the rest has got some issues, especially down here at the bottom. I think this was in like a garage or a barn. So this stuff is pretty torn up down here, and you can see how dry and sad this is. I couldn't decide. Wax, a new coat of poly. What are we gonna do about this sad, dry little buddy? And I think the answer is I'm going to test down here somewhere a bit of gel stain on this. Can I place? Oh gosh, they're playing in the paper. Oh my. And try to stain this a little bit darker and just rejuvenate the whole shebang a little bit. And hopefully we can get it like one shade darker and one shade less orange. You know, I would like to apologize in advance to 1905 or whenever this thing is from, but I just need to tone it a little bit more so that it matches in with my aesthetic a tiny bit better, you know? I know it's against all the rules, but it's my house, gosh darn it, and I gotta make it work for me, right? Right. Here is our noisemaker. What are you doing? Don't come back here. You show your shame. So I nervously gave this a tiny bit of a sand with some very fine sandpaper, or rather a sanding sponge here. Wiped all the dust away and then tried giving this a coat of gel stain. I used the Varathane oil-based gel stain in the color Kona, by the way. And I did just use that on a jersey, like a t-shirt fabric rag, and then on a chip brush to get into the details. And then I just left that on for a moment and brushed it all away as best I could. I'm no staining expert, but I just had to do something with this mantle, and therefore I thought I would give this a try. Worst case scenario, I figured I could always use the same black paint I was using on the trim and paint over this, which I know would have been even more sacrilege, so I'm glad I didn't have to resort to that, because this actually came out looking quite good. Okay, the first coat of stain is on. It's already looking so nice. This was one thirsty mantle, so she soaked that nonsense right up. It looks great in person. It still looks a little light here on camera, of course, especially next to our darker furniture, so I may still do another coat because it's just a tiny bit red, but I have to decide, and I'll just let this soak in for a couple hours, and then I'll come back to it and make a final decision. No one is surprised. All right, pals, I'm trying to figure out the floor portion of my tile surround, and yes, the tape while doing the staining did pull up my new black floor, which luckily that will be covered, but still. So to figure out how I want the tile surround around the floor and to make it slot in here, I have gone ahead and made a paper template that I can trace onto my MDF and then cut out with the jigsaw, especially because this MDF is only 4 feet long, and this is going to be longer than that. I will have to have a split down the middle, which is most unfortunate, but alas, unavoidable unless I were to go and get a larger sheet of MDF, and I'm just not up for that right now, so we're gonna make it work. I've cut my MDF to fit in our little opening here. It's currently taped together down the center, and now I'm trimming it out with this really tiny molding that's only a little over 1/4 inch thick. And I'm going to just glue the molding together with some wood glue, and I might actually patch this with a piece of paper on the other side. For now, I think I'm going to put some rug padding underneath this. I don't know why I worry about the floor underneath, but you know, just to keep things from scooting around too much, I guess. And then I can worry about filling in the middle of the fireplace here, so baby steps. Oliver, it's been hours and you're still chatting. What's the deal, buddy? So I just laid my MDF piece on top of some of that felt padding. I cut about 12 inches of that off of a larger rug pad. It's basically just felt with sticky stuff on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and just trace around the edge here and cut that out so that it has a little bit more height and some grippiness on the bottom, I guess. Rug padding cut. Just gonna slap this on top of there. Again, this is not like a heavily permanent solution, but I might want to change this up or do something more permanent in the future. So this is just a for now solution, you know? Now I'm just going to go ahead and probably put glue on the edge of this, glue it onto here, and then probably tape it into place for while that dries. And we'll see if that holds. The idea is this isn't going to be walked on. I mean, it might be walked on by the cats, but they weigh like 10 pounds. But the idea is I won't kick it that often. So here's hoping it's, you know, decorative as opposed to permanent as previously established. Okay. Trim is taped into place to dry with wood glue. This little buddy is still just, it's got a piece of paper taped on the bottom to kind of hold those two together. But I will actually go around these edges with some like painter's caulk, just to smooth out any little bits. I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be perfect. We're only gonna be seeing it from far above, unless you're a cat, which is unlikely. Okay, pals, I've ended up going with some little L brackets here on some of my cut off brace pieces. And then I am just braced in the center with a drywall screw into our, hopefully what is a stud, to brace the center of this, which is holding it in place nicely. And then up here, I'm going to put 2 more braces up here. I don't think I'll need another center one because of this, and because the 2 on the side will hold it out pretty far. At least let's hope not. So I can get this other piece of MDF slotted into place up here because they don't have hobby boards big enough for my needs. Technically, the MDF is in place. Is it perfect? No. Is it sort of Jimmy rigged or whatever? Yes. Are we going with it? I think so. So there's that. Paint hopefully will solve all of our problems, especially those screws in the middle. We are about to find out. Okay, so the plan here is tile on the outside, faux, like coal fireplace with a summer screen thing in the center. I found some listed for sale, and one said it was 27 by 21. So this is 26.5 by 21. I think that's not too bad here. And then I'll have to draw in the tile around it. Whew, we'll see how it goes. I painted 2 coats of each this minty green color, which I think is called Granada green, and then the onyx black in there. You can tell that this is not completely flat, but you know what? That's too bad. We're going with it. So obviously I need to paint the tile on the bottom, but we'll do that last because otherwise it'll get drips and nonsense all over it. So this is what we have so far. I have to do a little bit more detailing tomorrow, obviously. And here I am drawing in my brick pattern. I'm doing the horizontal stripes here first, which are 1.5 inches apart, and then the tiles will be 6 inches long. And to answer a few questions here, the reason I'm using smaller pieces of MDF instead of going for a larger board is expense, and the reason I'm doing a faux fireplace instead of installing real tile and a real summer screen is also budget. It's something I want to do later on, but for right now this is all I can afford to do, and therefore for now I'm going with Trompe. Alright everyone, I have drawn in my tiles, which, was a lot of measuring and trying to work my brain around a brick pattern for someone who is a little bit fried. But hopefully this will do. Who knows if the tiler who did this was perfect, right? I'm going to go ahead and break for lunch, and then I will start painting each individual tile because that's just, that's how I am. And in general, I've had a few questions about why I didn't do one thing or another, and usually the answer to that is cost. Why didn't I get custom wallpaper made for this room instead of stenciling? Because that sounds expensive, and would have taken longer with sending back and forth color tests and things like that. So usually if you're asking yourself, I wonder why Bianca didn't do this thing, which would have been fancier, the answer is because I'm all out of money after buying this house, okay? So I'm trying to do things on a budget here for now. Hopefully one day I can do more extravagant things, but for now, it's all about faking it until thou art making it. At least I have a house to live in now, and me and my cats can get happily cozy with a working boiler, and that's all that really, really matters at this point. The rest is just icing and window dressing, of course. Though I guess if you would like to see what I could get up to with an unlimited budget, feel free to check out my Patreon linked below. I have my first layer of modeling done on my tile. It's a little heavy in the middle there, but what are you gonna do? I will go ahead and probably do another layer on top of this, just to continue the sort of glazed, hopefully, look. And then I will start working on the middle iron/summer cover situation, and then hopefully, if I can get more of this done tonight, I can also get the surround on the bottom, the skirt of it, done as well. But here I am using a very watered down version of the same color paint I used to paint the tiles here, and just glazing over the top of everything just to help blend and meld everything together. You can see if you're looking closely or watching very closely that I didn't paint the very outside edge of the tiles, and that was mostly done on the left hand and top side so that it looked like light was coming in from the left, which is the illusion I'm also using to create the summer cover on the inside here, which I just painted the same onyx color as the trim, used the trim paint, and I did a very simple, minimal, geometric trompe-l'oeil effect with this, just creating some shadows so that it looks a bit like it's a molded cast iron summer cover. And I did finish this by adding some of my TCH logo bees down the center of the actual cover plate that would cover the coal box in an actual fireplace like this. I tried to stencil these, but ended up going in and finishing the details by hand. Painted the centery bit. It looks so purple on camera right now next to the tile. I have glazed my tiles. I have painted the center. We're going to call this a summer cover coal box thing. It's going to serve the purpose. It looks at least a little bit 3D. I put some bee logos on there. They're very rough up close, but once you get farther away, hopefully the illusion is granted. I'm going to eat dinner, and then I will paint this bottom tile here green so that I can do the same sort of effect to it tomorrow. This is really blown out, which is unfortunate, but the light is strong. I have painted the ground tile area in its first coat, and tomorrow I shall paint it to look more like the tile, like so. It's freaking fluorescent right now on this camera. Can I back up enough that is not the case? I don't think I can. We'll see if what this looks like with its grout tomorrow. I'm waiting for a gray paint pen, so I need to get one of those, and I will draw in my grout lines. Right now we have kind of pencil-y grout lines, which isn't terrible, but I can do a little bit better. The cats are yelling at me, so I better go play with them, but I'll get back to you shortly. And luckily I was able to find a fancy gray acrylic paint craft pen at the Michaels, although the set that it came in was a bit on the pricey side, which was unfortunate. But I really wanted to use gray for this, and I really wanted to use a paint pen for this, because obviously doing this with a paintbrush would be extra tedious. And really, I don't have the bandwidth left to do that. So with a paint pen, it was very simple. So to explain exactly how I'm getting this little dappled effect here, which looks better from far away, I'm using actually my fingertips to do this. So I have some very watered down paint, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in a tile here. Like so. It's actually maybe too watered down. And I'm just going to tap my finger to a slightly darker olive and then tap around randomly to create like a obscured, kind of as if these were randomly dipped and glazed finish, like that. Obviously each tile should be unique, so that's what I'm trying to do here. And again, from far away the effect is more convincing, but up close it's just you know, a bit impressionistic, as it were. All right, first layer of glaze for the ground tile is done. I need to glaze on top of that. It actually looks better at this stage than it does in the final. But you know, I'll follow the same process, and then after I do the grout, I'll see what else I need to do. But first, lunch. Also, what is this? Sophia? Look at me, Sophies. Look at everyone. Everyone wants to see your pretty... There you are. You pretty torty lady. You just meatloafed up here? Yes. We have our thin gray grout in place, done with a paint pen. Thank goodness for paint pens, is all I have to say about this room in general. Acrylic, by the way, not oil-based paint pens. Much better, much less smelly. So now I have to wait for this to dry a little bit more so I can tape off the edges and paint, thank you, Ollie, and paint the thin wood trim around the base here, the same color as the floor. I'll do that with the floor paint because I also need to touch up some spots on the floor anyhow. So I'm gonna clean up my other tools and paints and stuff, get them out of the way, and then I will touch up the floor tonight as well. But here is what my fireplace ended up looking like for now. Again, I may want to upgrade this to real tile and a real antique cast iron summer screen later on, but for now I think this will do just fine. And after all, what slightly haunted gal doesn't want a chartreuse tile fireplace in her sewing room? And in reality, the color almost matches Sophie's eyes, which is also quite fun. I'm going to go ahead and try and do a special keystone accent above the keystone of this arch, and then I will be able to extend the frieze to said keystone, stop it there, and then when I begin, I will flip it and go mirrored from the other side, all the way around that corner to the other keystone of the other arch. We'll see how this goes. I've painted the under layer for the gold, and I've painted one layer of gold. This will probably need another layer of gold tomorrow, but we'll have to see. And then I can do the little pattern that goes on top of this, and then start extending the frieze. Here I am just finishing that off with a bit of a blue accent, just part of the design taken from the rest of the stencil here, to add on to that keystone and just create something to be able to mirror my design against on either side. And then here I'm just painting the background layer for the frieze, which is a gradient between guacamole from Benjamin Moore and onyx from Benjamin Moore. Just mixing those together. This time I just used a brush to do this. I used rollers last time, but honestly, it doesn't have to be perfect, so I just used my brush and did this rather painterly, all by hand, I suppose. And here I am doing the base layer of the stencil for this side of the arch. This is done in a separate color of green paint called Terrapin Green, which is actually the color I was using watered down to finish the tiles on the fireplace earlier. The color of the little flowers in this design, the lighter green there, that's what color the base of the fireplace is. And then I used this slightly darker olive green to create the modeling on the tile. So I did just use the same green paints that I've been using on the frieze to paint the fireplace because of course I already have them kicking around. All I gotta say is it's a good thing that this looks so good because it's so much work. And if it looked any less cool, it certainly wouldn't be worth it. But I'm going to cut new stencils and continue on the other side. Probably not tonight unless I get a serious second wind. And also the stencils take a while to cut, but I need some fresh ones. Luckily I was able to cut the old ones apart to go above the arch like this. But I'm going to need some more on the other side here. And I got the gradient background at least done, so I can go ahead and put that up later. I also want to change up how I do the last black detail layer. I think I need to go in Photoshop and adjust that so that it's just a little bit larger because the details are so fine that the paint can't really get through the stencil and it just creates more of a mess than anything. So I think if I increase basically the line weight of those details, it would actually help the process be easier, and easier is what I'm looking for right now. And yes, the cats are around making a mess of their packing paper. This is the cat jungle gym of packing paper. They love it, but it's a crinkly, crinkly time. So that is where I'm at with the sewing parlor as of this very moment. Sadly, I have made no further progress, but I really hope to soon. In fact, today I hope to get some unpacking done after I put this video together for you all, because if I don't start making some sewing content soon, the little ball of anxiety in the back of my brain telling me I simply haven't been to work in the last 6 months might just explode. I hope you enjoyed this peek at what I've been up to here in the sewing parlor, and thank you so much as always for watching today, and especially thank you to my patrons for making my work and also my dreams possible. Now I had better get back to that work so that I can say I'll see you again here real soon. Bye. Thanks again to my patrons, especially Amy, Ashanti, Audra, Cheryl, Concetta, Karina, Denise, Elizabeth, Ellen, Alona, Eloquent Silence, Eva, Fatal But Not Serious, Franzie's Wild World, Haley, Jambonium, Janet, Jenny, Lainey, Lilith, Lynn Hamilton, Lynn Olson, Mac, Maggie, Margaret, Marie, Megan, Melody, Myrna, Nancy, Natalie, Nina, Rachamus, Sarah, Sean, Stephanie, Isabel, Thea, Theo, and Ula. Thank you so much for giving me my dream job and little by little here my dream home as well.